Hi, everybody. It's Marc Laurenson here from Sydney Astrology School. And I'm here with somebody who doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm going to anyway. It's the wonderful Frank Clifford from London School of Astrology. And he's here to talk about this wonderful webinar course he is going to be doing for us. And we'll fill you in as this particular interview goes on. But first, I want to say hi to Frank.
Hi there, Mark. Thanks for having me. And yes, I'm excited about the course. And you and I both Aries. It's easy to get excited about pretty much anything if your heart's in it.
Exactly, Frank. So Frank's course is through Sydney Astrology School, but everybody can join, of course. It is going to be at the very end of April, the 29th and the 30th of April, into early May. So it'll be 2 weeks, 2 nights for 2 weeks, 29th and 30th of April, and then the 6th and the 7th of May. Now, this is going to be at 6:30 in Australian time, Eastern Australian time. It's going to be 9:30 in the morning in the UK, and Europe will be probably an hour later. So if you're an American and you want to enjoy Frank's course, it will be recorded, and everybody who registers will get the recording of the 4 lessons, and you can keep them for good. Okay. So, Frank, do you want to just give everybody a kind of an idea about what they'll be learning in the course?
Sure, of course. And the fact that we've got it on 2 evenings, Australia time, and then a week later on 2 evenings means that anybody who's watching the first two can watch them in that first week and still stay up to date, join us for the last two, or even submit questions for the second two as well. So having that week's difference, I think, makes a big difference for people who want to get involved, want to ask extra questions that I can then answer in the second of the two classes. So just wanted to mention that because I think that's very useful, having a bit of a gap as well.
Yeah, great. That'd be fabulous. So it's going to
So
be on electional astrology. It's called Electing for Success. Am I right?
yes, it is. It is. And it's interesting, we astrologers learn this remarkable language. We learn all the different bits, all the building blocks, the signs, the houses, the aspects, all of that. And then it sort of just sits there and percolates sometime. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is, what can I be doing with this? And I think what put me off sometimes, many years ago. I've been studying astrology for a good 35 years now. But what put me off electional and horary was the idea of so many rules, so many
Yeah.
uh, strictures, so many ins and outs to consider, and you're almost frozen in terror of picking the wrong time. Uh, so I sort of backed away from it. I thought I'm going to learn my craft. I'm going to be comfortable with natal astrology, looking at forecasting. And then I guess I just found myself, like a lot of people, looking at whether it's SolarFire or AstroGold, whatever we have on our computers, and just watching the chart and then sending out emails at times that seem to be more suitable or suited or advantageous in some way. And I guess I was doing electional from an early stage without realizing what it was. So I thought, I've got to learn this because we learn this fantastic language. And as I say, it can sit there. And the key is what can we do with it? And with electional, it's really trying to, I mean, it appeals to control freaks like me. It really does. And it's about the best time, looking for the favorable date and time, looking for a best moment to reflect what you want out of the endeavor. So I often say you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You can't. I mean, I'm sort of just below, I guess, average height. I could find the perfect time of election astrology to apply for the National Basketball League or Association, but I'm never going to get accepted. At the age of 50 and my height, it's never going to happen. So there's only certain things you can do, but why not be in rhythm? And why not send that important contract or sign that important letter or send the email, get married at a time that is in harmony with your chart and the times? And why struggle more than we have to. So the key,
Exactly.
the, yeah, the key to electional really is to, in a simple way, step by step, I'm going to be teaching the students what to consider, what to look at, and to get an intuitive feel of what feels right. Not only that, but also there are some rules, there are things to be aware of, things to be cautious about. But one of the big secrets, it's not really a secret, it's just you don't read about it much, is that with electional astrology, a good moment of time is simply that. It's got to connect to your chart. So, for example, if I'm looking at today, when we're recording this, the moon's in Libra. It's been making some nice trines to Venus and Mars earlier today, and I was sending different things out at that time to make the very most of that moon in Libra connection back and forth between people. And it's been a day of a lot of interesting connections and positive responses. And so, but then not only am I looking for that, I'm also remembering those key important degrees of my natal chart. And then I'll send out the email maybe when my natal Jupiter is on the current ascendant, for instance. So there's lots of tricks that I'll teach you, not only of how to select, how to look at the ephemeris or your chart on your computer, but also then to make it personal. And once you've made it personal, it then has far greater chance of succeeding rather than just being a nice moment of time.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love the idea of it coming up against your natal chart, because an electoral chart by itself, of course, is going to give you some information. But I love the idea of bringing that as a bi-wheel kind of thing, like a transit bi-wheel to your natal chart, and
Yeah.
make it more personal to you and what you need and your experiences and how it's going to affect you beneficially, personally. I think that's a great one. I love that. I don't know
Yeah.
much about electoral astrology myself. I played around with it. I don't know the traditional rules or techniques terribly well. But I've kind of got an idea of how to put something together for me. But I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to your course because I'm going to be learning a hell of a lot myself.
Good. Good. Well,
I really need it. Yeah,
well, every time, the great thing about being a teacher is that you also end up being a student and learning from everybody in the class.
totally,
So I never
totally.
stop learning, as I love that. But the personalization, making it personal to your chart, doesn't have to be a rigmarole of hours of investigation. It's just knowing where your degrees are, knowing that if you want to do something that's highly motivating, remember your Mars degree, make sure that's in the election. So
Mm,
you're activating a quality of the zodiac that links directly to your Mars. So it's as simple as that. It's a bit like saying when Mercury goes retrograde, as it does 3 to 4 times a year, it does for 8 billion of us,
yeah,
but it will be talking to us in different ways depending on our natal chart. And most recently, before the new year, I went on 2 trips, and this is where the election astrologer and me should pay attention sometimes. And you don't, you book things, flights and etc. And I booked a flight on the day of the Mercury retrograde, and I booked a flight to come home on the day of the Mercury direct. So it was an interesting thing, and I sort of knew I was doing that as well. I must say, it wasn't like I was blind to it, but it was fun because it didn't speak to my chart. And so the chaos around me at times at the airport was nothing to do with me, and everything was incredibly smooth. And I thanked my lucky stars. I thanked that Mercury didn't decide to play tricks with me on both of those occasions. But it wasn't personalized.
yeah,
And when it's not personalized, it becomes something you read about in the news, or your friend's computer has just conked out, or they've lost their phone, or it's in other people's lives. So the electional is about finding a really good moment in time in the future that also speaks to your chart so it can be personalized and
yeah.
making the most of
I love that. I love that. I love that so much. I've got the moon in Libra, as you know, and so today is a good electional day to do this interview with you. It sits nicely in my chart with my natal moon, and also Libra is always going to be about connection and relationship. So, um,
Yeah.
in a way, in an electional way, this interview has been designed well for me on a personal level. So, yeah, I love that. I get that. I get that a lot. So, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to share my screen for a moment. Um, and so here is Frank's course, everybody. Um, so it's called Electing for Success. It's over four nights. There are the dates, okay. And as I said, it's going to be through Sydney Astrology School. So Sydney Astrology School, um, if you go to www.sydneyastrologyschool.com, that's my school, on our homepage is the registration for this particular course. Okay, so just go to sydneyastrologyschool.com, click on Frank's face on our homepage, and you'll go straight to the registration, and you can become part of this, which will be super, super exciting. Now, Frank, a lot of people know you. You've been in the business for a hell of a long time, written some amazing books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for the handful of people that don't know a lot about you, can you fill them in on where you started and how astrology came into your life?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks for asking. I've been working with astrology now probably for a good 35 years, probably around the time I was around 16. And my mum was always very interested in psychics and tarot readers, and we went to see an astrologer. And it was on a full moon in August 1989. I was 16 at the time, and it was with an astrologer you'll know called Tad Mann, and he was living in London at the time. And he does a different type of astrology called lifetime astrology, quite different use of the map. But at the time, I really didn't understand much about what he was looking at. But I bought one of his books. I had obviously Linda Goodman's Sun Signs. I had a few other books that I'd bought in my early teens, and went home and looked at my chart and tried to work out what everything was and why there was a triangle in the middle suggesting a trine. And I just sort of started to teach myself. And I think for the next few years, I bought as many books as possible and just worked on uh, I always say I learned astrology with a birth chart in one hand and a biography in the other. Always fascinated. I'm a Gemini rising with Aquarius midheaven. So my take on life is like, tell me about you. I want to know about you. I want to study. I want to learn about you. How do you reflect your chart? How do you speak your chart? And so that's been my way of learning. And it means, I think, that instead of learning set rules or just sticking to certain observations from different astrologers. I was always absorbing that, plus testing it out with charts, with natal charts, with transits, and asking why. So I've always been a researcher from the beginning, and then braved it in my early 20s and decided to do some consultations for people. And I'm also a hand reader. I'm a palmist. Uh, and so I did both for fundraisers and learned my craft uh, through studying, seeing people, seeing clients
Yeah.
from probably from the age of 21 onwards. So that's been a 30-year process of seeing clients as well. So uh, that's really how I got started. But you learn so much from seeing what people do with their charts rather than simply trying to create an assessment from a formula. Oh, you've got this in your chart, it means this. Well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And that's the key to see, well, how are you using that? And I'd look at charts and think, why has this person been married 3 times and this person hasn't? Or why are they doing this? Or, and you ask yourself, sometimes you ask yourself questions that actually astrology can't really answer, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
I
Uh,
I totally agree with you, Frank.
yeah.
People ask me, who was your teacher? Who was your guru or which books were, and it was kind of like I have to go back because I'm thinking, nobody really was my teacher. Life was my teacher. And, working on, learning on the job, exactly what you just said, learning through other people, learning through their charts, also learning through, as you do, having a bio in one hand, I love that, and a chart in the other, learning from their lives and learning how they've used their chart. Life was my teacher. So, yeah, it was hard to actually say was a person because it wasn't a person. It was everybody. Everybody was my teacher, basically. Yeah.
Well, my biggest influence was Lois Rodden, who ended up creating Astro Databank, or putting all her data on there. And she was my biggest teacher, not because of what she taught me, but because of her books, the data, the charts of famous people. And every time a biography would come on television or there'd be an interview in the newspaper, I'd get the chart out and have a look and hear people speak their charts. So that I think that's the way you learn, and that means that you're not dependent on one particular method. You bring in your observations, and it's your take, you know. And I'm a great believer in doing it yourself in an Aries way, and finding the right people, the right books, the right teachers to help
Yeah.
stimulate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I've been influenced by wonderful people. Stephen Forrest, of course, was a huge influence of mine back in the 80s when I was in my 20s, starting to formulate ideas. And Stephen's books, early books came out at that time. So he was huge for me. But, as you grow and as you get older, you tend to understand astrology very, very differently from what you're learning and what you're experiencing along the way. So I totally
Yeah.
get that, totally understand what you're saying, Frank. So London School of Astrology, is that something that just happened? Because my school kind of just happened, really. So did yours kind of morph out of something, or did you plan to do that?
Well, I didn't. I wasn't the founder of the school. Two other people were, Sue Tompkins and a woman called Christine Tate. And there was, yeah, one of the things about being an Aries, I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Mark, is the avoidance of committees, the avoidance of councils, and the sort of thing that turns
Yeah,
decent, nice people into monsters, you know? And I've I've never wanted to be part of committees like that. It just I think it brings out the worst in people. And I call myself a benevolent dictator. I run the school, I pay people on time, I try to look after people as much as I can, and just get on with it. And what I noticed was, with certain schools, certain organizations, there's a lot of politics there, and it even we astrologers that are supposed to be a little bit more enlightened can just not be so good to each other, shall we say. So the school was sort of founded out. It was founded from some political disarray. Uh, and then a couple of years later, I was asked whether I would buy it and take it over, uh, because Sue, who founded it, didn't really want to run a school, didn't want that burden. She wanted to teach, but didn't want the burden. And I took it on with the idea that I'm not taking on any politics. I just want to run the school, and it was a great experience. So it sort of landed in my lap
yeah.
at in my I guess in my early yeah in my I think it landed in my lap at the age of 30, just around my Saturn return. So
Yeah,
it's been a long uh, been a long process of running the school, and but you learn so much. I always say to people, if you really want to learn astrology, dare to teach it, because it's uh, when I went in, I was 30. I'd been teaching myself for 10, 12, 15 years, and my attitude was, what if I don't know everything? Of course, which is what we all worry about as a teacher. And I was sort of clever enough at that point with my Saturn in Gemini, which is the big fear of sounding stupid or sounding
mm,
uneducated.
yeah,
I thought the only thing I can do is to say, I don't know. I don't know if the answer is I don't know. Simply say, I don't know what that means yet, or I haven't studied that area, but I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
And so teaching was great training for doing that and learning, sometimes being just one step ahead of everyone on certain areas, and then being an eternal student myself. The key to me for teaching is always if you can't do it nicely, don't do it. And if you can't do it simply and build upon it and help people understand and answer all their questions or anticipate that people may be coming from very different ways of learning, uh, then stay away from teaching if you can't be flexible enough to do that or patient enough. So, as an Aries, this is the only area of my life, teaching, where I'm actually quite patient because that's my job. My job is to
Yeah.
teach and to get the message across and to help people join the dots.
Yeah.
In other parts of my life, I'm less patient, shall we say? Yeah.
No, I get that totally. Being in areas as well and running my own school, I get that totally. Um,
Yeah.
because, I've got a Libra moon as well, so I've got the opposition thing happening. And so it's always going to be about getting things moving, getting things started in an Aries way. But the understanding of the students and what they've come for and what they want out of the course and what they need to learn. And just what I love what you said about astrologers being kind, because we really have to be. We have to be kind to each other and we have to be kind to our clients. I drum that into my students big time. If you're not going to be kind, if you're not going to be taking a client's chart and coming at them from a heart space with them and a kind space with them, you may as well stop astrology now, as far as I'm concerned, because kindness is the number one thing. And understanding that on all levels, understanding that as a person, but as a teacher, is so important. It's so important. It's taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me a lot about what I need to learn personally by doing what I love to do. So it's been great. It's been great.
Well,
Yeah.
there are a lot of technical astrologers who really just focus on finding patterns, full stop. And that's great for what it is. But I am thankful when I meet those people, often, not always, but often, that they're not seeing clients, because seeing clients does require an ability to sit and listen and to reflect and to help in productive ways. If the ego gets involved, if a need to try to impress or to be right, which are some of the most difficult things that can ruin consultations, if that gets in the way, the client really suffers.
I
And
totally agree.
yeah,
They have to
and
leave. They have to leave feeling better than when they arrived. They have to. And if they
and
don't, you've done something wrong. Yeah.
feeling empowered, feeling like it's back in their hands. Not that you're the great seer or the great guru. And I think when we learn astrology, it can appeal to the ego side of Jupiter, where we become the one that people want to see.
Yeah.
Or, let's bow down. And I think one of the great things about being an Aries that you may agree with is that even though it's a sign where we want to lead the way, we don't actually want followers. We want people to do their own thing. I want you to
Yeah.
come and yeah, I want you to learn with me, but go off and do your thing. Go out and
Mm.
teach it. Be
Yeah.
generous with other people. Do that too. Don't be flocking to me and
Yeah.
wondering what my next move is. I haven't got the sort of energy or interest or personality, I guess, that wants to be some sort of guru. I just want people to find it themselves, wake up and run and do it.
I
So,
love that, Frank. I totally get that. I totally understand that. That's fabulous. I love the way you put that. So, Frank, you've got some really exciting things coming up. You've got something happening at the Royal Albert Hall pretty soon. Do
oh
you want
yes.
to say a few things about that?
Oh, thank you. Yes, well, yes, it's a shame it didn't happen last September. Otherwise, you'd have been there as well.
I
That
know.
was that
I
was a
know.
shame.
Would have loved
Yeah.
to have been part of it.
I blame Cirque du Soleil. Apparently, they booked my room,
Oh,
and they
wow.
had to cancel me. Anyway, so we're not in the main place. That we're in one of the big rooms as part of the Royal Albert Hall. But I've got Mars and Jupiter in Aquarius on the MC, and my feeling is, this is what I say often about the midheaven. It's how you blossom into the world, but you've also got to shine a light on the opposite, on the icy. And the icy, if you're Aquarius on the midheaven, the icy is in Leo. And if you don't look into that, the ego dominates. Yeah. So over the years, I'm very happy with the work I've done. I have people who are very kind about my books and of my work and all that sort of thing. But really, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been spending a lot of time using the astrology platform of the school to fundraise for different groups, different organizations, nothing to do with the school, but other things. So during COVID, we were fundraising for the nurses, and when I was in Australia back in 2020, I was fundraising for the animals that have with the fires that had killed so many of the wildlife in Australia. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Um, so the Royal Albert Hall is another opportunity to fundraise. We've got a fantastic uh, uh, charity called Awesomeage, like awesome and orphanage, and it's a client of mine has created this series of orphanages around the world, and he's a really dynamic Capricorn, and I thought, what a great charity to fundraise for. So we're doing it for them, and some people are. I'm hoping to record it, put it online. I'm not doing any of that yet until we actually get the recordings. But it'd be lovely to fundraise a lot of money for that. And people who can't attend in person, we hope that they'll be able to buy the recordings and be part of the atmosphere, even if they're not there. But it's all for a good cause, and we've got fabulous people like Deborah Holding, Melanie Reinhardt, Mark Jones,
yeah.
and John Woodward. Even Richard Swatton, one of my great teachers, is playing Elton John's piano for the day. It's going to be fantastic, and it's about 4 weeks away. So I've got a lot to do before then to make sure everything is Virgo moon perfect. Yeah.
It sounds like a fabulous event, Frank, and why you're doing it is incredible. It's incredible. I take my hat off to you. I really admire the amount of work you do for charities. It's amazing. It's amazing stuff. So I'm sure it'll do super well, and everyone's going to benefit from it for sure.
I hope
So
so.
I'm just going to put up, just very quickly, I'm just going to put up the Sydney Astrology School. There we go. That's that's just the website to go to for Frank's course, sydneyastrologyschool.com. So you'll see Frank's face on our homepage. As I said, just click on that and you can register for Frank's course on electional astrology called Electing for Success. I love the title of that too. So
Thank
there
you.
we
No, I
go.
both did.
What's that?
When Deborah Holding came a few years ago to one of the conferences that I was running, she said, "What shall I call it?" And I said, "Electing for Success." And then it popped up in my head again. I thought, oh, she might not forgive me for borrowing it, but I did come up with the idea originally. So anyway, I thought I'd use that again.
Yeah, well, it's a great title. It's a great title, and I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy it. So thank you so much, Frank, for joining me and chatting with me. I'm going to be learning a hell of a lot from your course. I know I will. So I'm looking forward to it. And I hope as many people as you can, many people as we can get, I mean, from this webinar will sign up. Will sign up for the course. So
Well,
lots of love,
well,
Frank. And
thank you, Mark.
I'm going to be seeing you real soon.
You will indeed, and we'll have fun. And whoever we've got will have fun together, and there'll be a lot of connection, a lot of interaction as well. So looking forward
Sure.
to that.
I'm sure. Thanks, Frank. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody. Bye bye.